There are no traces of the pestilence in his system.
Alors, comment devrions-nous commencer?
I'll be sure to send him my warmest regards.
Ah shit, here we go again. Hello everybody, and welcome back to 4+, your favorite show with your favorite host, Mr. Minus, or rather Dr. Minus, considering the subject of today's video. If you've been keeping up with our uploads, first of all, you got a high five and a fist bump. Secondly, you'll know we're in a bit of a high regarding SCP-related content. You guys responded pretty well to our SCP video as well as the Enigma Corp video, so because of this, we figured we'd give the people what they want, which is more of my annoying ass talking about government hidden horrors. As a result, if you couldn't guess by the title of this video, we've decided to take a look at SCP-049. It's going to be a bit of a different type of video in terms of content, as we're more going to be reviewing the character as a whole instead of just analyzing particular works. That said, fear not, there is spooky content on the internet revolving around this guy, so don't worry too much. But enough gab. It's time to grab our plague masks and drink our totally legitimate medicine. This is SCP-049. But before we begin, please be sure to like and subscribe. Additionally, please be sure to check out the description for 4Player, our gaming channel.
I hear footsteps. Okay.
You'll also find our Instagram, Letterboxd, and community Discord, where we can see your suggestions and just have a good time. Alright, now we can go. SCP-049. We're going to start out with a bit of background information on this guy, as well as context for his entire aesthetic. First of all, digging it. This guy definitely knows what he likes and doesn't care about the modern day trends. He's a cultural icon, I tell you. But jokes aside, his clothes alone do set him apart from a lot of SCPs, and even just horror villains in general. Plague doctors have, for a lack of better word, aura. And it's not even just due to modern day retrospect. Plague doctors were quite common in the days of the Black Plague. They were sent out to try and contain the now infamous bubonic plague, but many saw them as a sign of doom. This was because despite being one of the most famous types of doctors, they weren't really all that good at it. They were primarily composed of rookies, disgraced doctors, or sometimes even just straight up volunteers. In all fairness, if I was offered this outfit, I'd probably volunteer as tribute too. Anyways, the plague doctors after a point began to just be surveyors, in that they just calculated the sheer amount of deaths the plague was causing. This was due to multiple factors, like the sheer power of the plague, but also their methods being pretty ineffective. In particular, they practiced bloodletting. If you're unfamiliar, these guys basically would put leeches on the inflammation due to the plague and just let them feed. Essentially, they were trying to bleed it out and dig deeper, just to throw it away. The only real thing the doctors actually accomplished was the outfit. Well, that and helping my boy Ezio out in a pinch. Aside from being one hell of an aesthetic, the plague doctor's outfit was slightly effective in containing the plague. Some of it was impractical, like for example the beak being filled with flowers. It was believed that one could be infected by the stench of the dead, in that the actual smell itself was a carrier instead of air particles. As a result, they filled the noses with flowers such as roses or even peppermint. The real practicality came from just how covered up the doctor was. There was virtually no part of their body exposed, therefore it was very difficult for the plague to actually get to these guys, and they lived in isolation, so they had very little chances of actually getting infected themselves. Their cane was also used to help in their work without having to directly touch the victim. When you really think about it, these guys were the first people to mask up and prepare for something like COVID. Am I about to be demonetized for saying that? Anyways, the plague doctors as a result became subject to a lot of satire and works of art after a point. Plays in particular used them as a symbol of horror or death, a depiction that survives to this day, as they are a staple in the symbolism of horror and the dead itself. So now that we know what we know about the plague doctors in general, what do we know about this one? SCP-049 is to be handled when sedated. He is to be restrained with a collar, kinky, and handcuffs while being watched by 2 guards. Interestingly enough, 049 is generally cooperative, but is prone to sudden outbursts. If this happens, it's instructed to throw lavender at him as it calms him down. If you remember the detail about the flowers in the masks, it should be noted lavender was among the flowers real doctors had and was a personal favorite. Additionally, much like a real plague doctor, he does conduct surgery on the dead bodies, but he is to be denied human bodies. Instead, just animal bodies. Why? It's a surprise for later. The clothing, however, is said to not exactly be an outfit of choice. Instead, it is literally growing from his body. Despite being associated with a fraudulent occupation, the doctor is actually quite intelligent as he can speak English and French. I wonder if he's in a relationship with a mime. That's an interesting thought. Does he use the nose or... Anyways, researchers report the doctor seems to get aggressive whenever he is met with what he refers to as The pestilence. It's not exactly clear what it is, but this is where he becomes hostile. If left unchecked, he tries to kill the victim simply by touching them, as his touch is enough to kill instantly. This will only frustrate him as he sees it as a failure to stop the pestilence. So basically, he is a more lethal version of Rogue from the X-Men, in a Plague Doctor outfit. Wait, maybe I shouldn't think about that too much, and it's too late.
Boner alert!
Regardless, this may sound familiar if you've played SCP Containment Breach. 049 is one of the many characters that appear in the game, and he is quite the haunting addition. He will follow the character around the entire time while spouting lines revolving around the pestilence. The hardest part, he really can't be stopped. He will always be pursuing the player, and no weapons can stop him. All you can do is run, or wear a suit to protect yourself. That said, the Doctor, however, does proceed to attempt surgery on the dead. It's quite crude and isn't really successful, but it does, however, result in SCP-049-2. Essentially, these are zombies. They are reanimated corpses with no capability for higher thought, therefore they are docile until provoked or ordered otherwise by SCP-049. They are still very much so a mystery biology-wise, but the not-so-good Doctor claims they are cured, so what do we know? If you're curious how they captured this guy, well, this is the story all about how his life got flipped, turned upside down. In short, the Doctor was chilling out in a town located in southern France when suddenly pesky law enforcement showed up, suspecting the area had a local kidnapper. Instead, it was just a bunch of zombies. One gunfight later, SCP-049 willingly surrendered but took quite a few notes during the firefight. So what happened after that? Well, the Foundation began its studying of the guy and found some interesting things, so let's take a look-see, shall we? Our first documentation the Foundation has of 049 is an interview with him and Dr. Ham. Let's take a listen at that sultry voice.
Alors, comment devrions-nous commencer? Une introduction.
Oh, beautiful. If you're a dumbass American like me, that was a rough listen. But a lot of that is due to the fact that it was in the language that they speak in Expedition 33. Let's give it another shot and hear what he's like in the nation's language.
We get a translator. The King's English. No need for translation, sir. I can speak it well enough.
There we go. The interview is short but interesting as we get a bit more introspective of what exactly 049 is thinking. He seems to be polite to the Doctor due to their shared field of study, but he also seems to be a bit fixated on this pestilence we mentioned earlier. He struggles to even describe it, but oddly enough, he isn't aware of what the bubonic plague is. This makes him all the more interesting, as clearly he knows something we don't. They even get to talk about his zombies, which he sees as cured. He acknowledges it's not perfect, but he does think of it as the best option. According to him, he's looking beyond the simple states of life and death. The interview ends with 049 requesting an entire setup before it cuts off. It's noted as well that while 049 seems human, there is something very off while interacting with him. Something akin to the uncanny valley in a way. I will say this, it's quite interesting to finally have heard this voice officially. The calm demeanor is of course a little unsettling, as well as the mask filter interfering with his voice. Much like the Doctor said, it all has the makings of being human, but it doesn't fully make it. Therefore, it's just off. Further observations have 049 conducting surgery on animals for days at a time and even trying to share his findings with staff. It's even shown he can reanimate corpses multiple times after killing them, as done with an orangutan, a subject he found to have provided his first roadblock in finding the cure. Dr. Ham conducted a second interview, but this one seemed a bit more intense. 049 took some of Ham's comments as degrading and disrespectful. As a result, he starts to get a temper, but they're able to kiss and make up by the end. That said, the wiki claims the next interview saw 049 getting anxious suddenly and then attacking Dr. Ham without any warning. Security protocols weren't followed closely, and thus Dr. Ham was turned into a zombie, to which 049 was transferred to another site and then interviewed again by Dr. Theron Sherman. Sherman's interview is a lot more chaotic. Basically, 049 is on trial for his actions, but explains he did nothing wrong. He claims this was all to cure the pestilence, but Sherman confronts him as he says the Doctor has never once given an example of what the pestilence even is. 049 stands his ground and claims this disease is something only he can understand. Eventually, it culminates in 049 being placed in containment while he proclaims only he can save us all from the pestilence.
You are all sick, but I can save you. I can save all of you because I am the cure.
The final interview is conducted by Elijah Itkin, where he asks for his view on the events. 049 still stands his ground, believing his actions with Dr. Ham are justified, but Sherman noted he seemed shaken by Ham's death. 049 states it was a tragedy he had to die, but the work must go on. He requests live human subjects, but the doctor tells him he'll be disappointed, to which he replies,
"Oh, Doctor, I wouldn't be so sure."
It should also be noted that there are some interesting footnotes to him as well. He claims to be from the 15th century France, though he is well traveled. I am so swiping right on this guy. That said, other interesting notes is his bag can hold larger objects in it, which is silly but also intriguing.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
He also doesn't require food to eat, but it does help get him in the right mindset. Perhaps they should give him a Snickers, as you're not you when you're hungry. The last thing I'd like to note is that, interestingly enough, 049's diary isn't in any known language. The Foundation has tried to decipher it, but so far there's been zero progress. So, in short, we got a plague doctor who is obsessed with curing the world, and his method is zombification of his patients. Isn't the world just full of wonders? So far, 049 has been an outstanding study. He's a lot more than just a cloak and dagger full of medicine. He seems to have a lot more going on behind that mask. If only there was more content to look at. Oh, would you look at that? SCP Sedition. From what I've gathered, this video is one of a larger series. If you guys like this type of content, we are more than willing to return to the series, but for now, let's focus. The episode of the series opens with text explaining a council member named Jacobs has been granted permission to interview 049 for whatever reason. I can only imagine it's out of pure desperation. We open up to Jacobs speaking to a security officer who seems to be absolutely shocked Jacobs is going to interview this guy. It's either that or that shy fucker from last time, and he's a whiny bitch, let me tell you. Anyways, Jacobs admits he's in a damned if he does, damned if he doesn't situation, so might as well go out swinging. He orders him to cut the feed if he dies so his enemies receive no satisfaction from his death. We cut to the inside of the cell with Jacobs and 049. 049 seems to remember Jacobs and decides to speak in French. Jacobs dismisses the notion, preferring English, as 049 brings up that he was promised a good test subject. Jacob explains that dude died. I'm headcanoning he died by the greatest RKO the world has ever seen. Anyways, the doctor claims he could sense the pestilence in that man too, which he laments he has no patience, and even worse, Jacobs is consumed by the pestilence. This is why you always get your flu shots, guys. 049 agrees to the interview primarily because he can sense the lavender Jacobs has. See, he's a true friend. He remembers his favorite flower. Jacobs asks how he came to learn how to fight the pestilence. The doctor is vague about his answer, which successfully rage baits Jacobs. He recovers from the fumble and the two kiss. Oh, sorry, I was fantasizing. The two make a deal. Jacobs gets his answers. 049 gets better living conditions.
I'll make that deal. How about you bitch, you make that deal?
049 was given no guidance to fight the pestilence. He's all self-taught. I knew this man's never been to medical school. As for the origins, he can't give an answer. All he knows is it's carried from birth and thus believes it's hereditary. Jacobs asks why it hasn't evolved. The doctor believes it doesn't, so it can still run about and infect more people. Viruses need a host after all. He goes on about a few theories, believing it could be prehistoric in its origin. That said, he is open to the idea that humans are born pure before being corrupted by the pestilence. Jacobs is confused by all these riddles and moves on asking about his first encounter. The doctor doesn't recall much due to the sheer amount of patients he's seen, but it started in a cottage near a castle when he was hailed by a servant to the prince. Turns out, a pair of twin sisters were infected with something. 049 believes while she was sick, the prince was even worse. He proceeded to kill the entire cottage and then the castle. Survivors tried to burn him inside the castle after witnessing the zombies, but they failed. It was here where 049 knew his mission. Jacobs asks if he's immune to the pestilence. The doctor hesitates to answer and says he's confused. Jacob asks if the doctor is infected, as if even he is infected without knowing, then how can the doctor be sure he isn't infected as well? The doctor claims Jacobs is spouting pure nonsense, to which Jacobs gives the best line. Did we date the same person? Anyways, Jacobs breaks it down into the simplest terms to him. The doctor claims he isn't infected as he can combat it, but still doesn't understand how he could be infected at birth despite believing everyone is infected at birth. Jacobs posits an interesting theory. Perhaps the pestilence follows 049. The doctor begins to panic and asks for him to lighten up on the poor guy. Jacobs redirects and asks how the suit is a part of his actual biology. He babbles about how everything is either a cause or a symptom. When Jacobs asks which one he is, the doctor simply compares humans to a virus. How humans assimilate each other simply because they can. Jacobs concludes he is saying that the plague doctors impersonated him. The doctor claims those who took his look never understood him. They went off to cure simple viruses and diseases, but he wanted to attack the root of all evil, that being the pestilence. Jacobs brings up how doctors help people and their accomplishments save lives. 049 instead claims this only fuels the pestilence and is only a temporary victory. Jacobs pries for an answer before the doctor simply answers it's just his anatomy. Similar to how humans don't question why we have arms and legs, he doesn't question why he looks the way he does. That said, he is humanoid in his skeleton, so Jacobs wonders if he ever was human. 049 claims he merely adapted, but he wouldn't call it a step in evolution necessarily. Jacobs continues and asks if there are more like him. As far as he knows, there are none, but he isn't ruling out the possibility. That said, he doesn't care to meet more if they exist. Jacobs concludes he is the only one, but asks if he has any apprentices. Turns out he did. Many, of course, left, but some stayed. Some even begged him to help, but others were afraid. Therefore, he hoped to convince them with his work. He tried to enlighten his students, but none could do it. Jacob asks if any were special to him, to which he responds with one, Yolanda. Apparently, she understood the pestilence the best out of his apprentices. She avoided infection despite her family dying. Her age was unknown, but he was sure she was a child. A dude in black robes and a mask, abducting a child after their family dies. Sounds a lot like a certain bat. Anyways, they traveled for nearly a decade, and apparently she could see the pestilence. They had many discussions about it, and she taught him the importance of food to the clarity of the mind. Yolanda, however, began to feel uneasy. Humanity was chipping away at her mind and making her attached to their patients. 049 believes morality is indeed a plague, but Jacobs counters that it's necessary to understand human life's importance. The doctor agrees life is important, but that he must do what he must do to protect it. Jacob scolds his actions as immoral, but the doctor says the SCP Foundation is just as immoral, if not worse. Even Jacobs has killed people for his own benefit. Jacob says he was following orders, to which the doctor says that is no excuse, especially as he's heard it all throughout history and the many battlefields he has seen. He continues the story, saying Yolanda wanted more humane testing for the cure. She began to fight back and protect the patients, so as a result, the doctor had to do what must be done, saying the calling demands it. Jacob reminds him he was just following orders. Next, Jacob proposes if everyone has the pestilence, is it maybe the next step in evolution? The doctor finds it amusing, as to him that's like saying a deformity is an upgrade. He reminds him that only he understands the pestilence. He can feel its very existence down to its soul. He feels fear when it's around, but he's unsure if it's that of his own or the victim's. Jacobs claims feeling like there is something wrong is something everyone has. It's like a pulse in that it's just human. The doctor says the pestilence is in everyone, and all this has done is just prove his point since Jacobs clearly doesn't understand. The doctor is asked if anyone is immune. The doctor says if there was, he wouldn't be here fighting the pestilence, and that he has given up on all hope regarding such a thing. Jacobs gets a call from his security pal, to which they bring in a special envoy. It's this thing. The doctor is a bit upset it's not freshly dead, but he'll work with it. We cut to footage of the doctor conducting an autopsy before he asks if he objects to his methods. Jacob says yes, but if the pestilence is even real, then his goals are at least noble. The doctor says every action he takes helps his studies, so he should be aided. Jacob says that the issue is he's asking them to believe in something they cannot see. But the doctor basically says that's exactly what Jesus did, and it seemed to work. Jacobs then counters that all the doctor's work is just a dead end. There are never clear answers. He objects to the zombies he makes, but the doctor says one day it'll all be worth it. Jacobs asks why make a cure if nothing of the human will remain. The doctor asks who the man was. He was Gregory Sline, an engineer. He notes there are signs of having the pestilence, but it is gone now. He died cured. This means a cure is indeed possible. The body is taken out as Jacobs asks about the significance of the zombies. The doctor tells him they are valuable to his research, as humans can't survive his research. He's satisfied with his work, as the zombies can detect pestilence carriers. Jacobs claims this is a nice way of saying they'll just kill all they see. He questions the doctor's motivation, but the doctor says if he wanted the world gone, it would have happened. So Jacobs asks if there was anyone he regrets not saving. The doctor laments the loss of Yolanda. He's saddened at her loss, as he really had hope for her, but it seemed as if her soul rejected him. Jacobs notes it's funny he thinks a soul exists. The doctor acknowledges its possible existence as well as the lack of one with his victims. Jacobs asks if he thinks the soul is trapped in them when he cures them, but he reiterates he never agreed it exists. He simply acknowledged it might. Jacobs asks if he cured anyone and then regretted it, to which he brings up his first SCP cure, Dr. Ham. He believes Ham might have understood after enough time or even developed a vaccine, but he panicked and acted. He demands the next question, believing there is nothing left to say. Jacobs asks if he knows of any SCPs that has the pestilence. The doctor claims a few do, so Jacobs asks about 106. In short, 106 is just a mysterious old man with dimensional powers. Perhaps a video on him could be in order. But the Doctor understands the link. He believes he is infected, but that isn't the source of his powers. Jacobs is confused how that can't be seen as such, to which the Doctor says he's never allowed the infection to possibly produce such abilities. Jacobs then offers SCP-008 as a possibility. In short, it's the zombie virus, because it isn't a Mr. Minus video without some kind of zombies, right? The Doctor believes there is no connection, but it is the threat that will follow once the pestilence is cured. It didn't want to be born. Therefore, he wonders if this was a mistake or part of a plan. He's then offered 079. That one is basically an evil computer, kind of like that one dude from Winter Soldier. He believes he is, drumroll please, safe, but he is probably an unwilling helper of the pestilence. Jacobs is confused as it's a machine, but he explains the pestilence takes many forms. Well, that would explain the insane clown posse's existence. They then move on to SCP-035. He claims to be SCP-049's bestie. Sadly, it's not a notion 049 shares. God, what a dick. Look at this guy. Jacobs believes the black goo it secretes has to be related somehow, but the Doctor believes the pestilence may be in him. But it's trivial if so. Next is 343. No, not the people ruining Halo. Crash Course 343 believes he is a god. I'll let you decide. The Doctor sure seems to be a skeptic, so he believes he is also infected with the pestilence. So here comes the final candidate. SCP-001. If you're unfamiliar, it's okay. We aren't either because we don't have that clearance. Just kidding. Kinda. See, there is but also isn't a 001. Apparently it is under decision as to what 001 should be, considering the importance of that number. As a result, the answer varies from the bullet that killed Kennedy, a place of eternal life, paper, a toy maker, a factory, you, the moon, a path, the sun, the earth, Uriel, a monster, a matchmaker, evil children, a church, a researcher, the chaos insurgency, an AI that thinks it's a dog, a school, a king, a lock, unknown, you again, pizza, a conversation, and the multiverse. I'm headcanoning it's Jared Leto. Basically, it's a choose your own adventure on this one. All the Doctor says is that he hopes not. As if he does, then truly, nothing matters at the end of it all. 035, according to Jacobs, claims he met 049 in the Black Plague and was even warned by him. The Doctor scoffs at this claim and sets the record straight. In his adventures, he found the mask on a merchant train. He tried to swindle him into many terrible medical practices such as snake oil and bloodletting. He then tells him to take arsenic as a sore throat cure, to which he told him to demonstrate it. 035 did and eventually was proven to be a fool by 49 due to the superior knowledge of medical practice. He shared to 035 his story about the pestilence and all, but 035 wasn't done yet. In Venice, 035 attacked him, but 049 got the upper hand by touching the already dead host of 035. It became a running thing that 035 wanted the mask removed, but he never succeeded. Their climactic battle was at a castle where 049 heard screams from. He believed it was the pestilence, but 035 arrived and told him he'll kill everyone if he doesn't take his mask off. 049 tries to explain it's impossible, but 035 called cap and killed everyone. 035 after this changed his tone. He deduced he wasn't lying and stopped trying to remove the mask. Eventually, 049 tried to create a cure from the mask's black goo, but then 035 acted out. He started a rumor that he was the omen of death, which made it harder for him to conduct his work. Mobs chased him out routinely, so he dropped him in a house and locked him in, where he remained, until the SCP Foundation arrived, that is. Jacobs expresses regret over saving him and delivers bad news that they're going to be in the same facility. He then asks if it's possible the pestilence is a sixth sense in that he knows when someone will die, and that he is essentially the Grim Reaper. The Doctor concludes death and the pestilence are possibly the same. Jacobs then asks why did he surrender easily, as they never knew of him beforehand, and it was almost too easy. In fact, he seemed to anticipate their arrival as he watched the whole firefight. 049 gets smartassy, which makes Jacobs mad, as the SCP sees this as a vacation. 049 explains he's been observing them from behind these walls and relates to some of their moral ambiguity. That said, he still finds the Foundation to be reprehensible in their actions. He had hoped the facility was going to provide him with conditions to continue his work. Jacobs notes the agency was never going to do that, as his pestilence theory is unreliable in every way. The agency concludes he is either trying to change the world into his own liking, or he is outright insane. 049, however, explains the agency and Jacobs will die, so it doesn't matter what he thinks, as he'll still be alive. The last question is what will 049 do if he cures the pestilence, or if it even is curable? The Doctor explains even if it is incurable, he has to try. He remembers a line 035 would say from time to time. In short, it meant consciousness makes us cowards. He even remembers 035 believed people suppressed their joys in life because they feared a punishing afterlife. 049 never believed in an afterlife, therefore he believes if he cures the pestilence, he will just despawn. Jacobs questions this thought. 049 entertains the idea of an afterlife and asks if Jacobs will be punished for his sins or the good he left undone. And if when he dies, will he feel like he has fulfilled his purpose? We then cut to Jacobs ending the interview with a fearful sigh. Security offers him a last chance to leave, but he denies. He asks if it'll hurt, to which the doctor says yes. The cameraman turns as the doctor approaches with his hand out before pausing. Jacobs demands him to kill him, but the doctor claims he is cured of the pestilence suddenly. Therefore, Jacobs has a purpose and must live longer. Jacobs is confused on what to do now, but the doctor tells him to live his life, but he will kill his friend if he sees him. The rest of the video has nothing to do with 049, so we will just end right there. I will say this one was very interesting. The video was slow and didn't have much in terms of frights, but it really did add layers to his character. The performances really enhanced his entire concept, really. We learned so much about 049, yet he is still terrifying, based on his answers and how some crucial parts are missing from the story. There were a lot of themes that were strongly presented in this video. Guilt, regret, duty, loyalty, they're all over this video, and it's portrayed amazingly. 049 filled a role that was sort of a mix of Thanos, Hannibal Lecter, and even Jigsaw. He claims his heart is in the right place despite the monstrous actions he's taken. He's dangerous, but our protagonist needs him. I think the best part about this video too is that we really don't know where 049 really stands. It's possible 049 is indeed just insane and thus is a mystical being that has gone off the deep end, which is a scary concept. The other possibility is that he is correct, and that the pestilence has consumed us all, which makes him our only cruel hope, which is also terrifying. He rides the line perfectly. There's enough logic and depth to him that is believable, and that he does actually believe in the pestilence, and in turn, we the viewer do too. But there's also enough self-delusion and ego present in this performance and writing that it is easy to view him as just a madman in denial. The video even proposes interesting theories regarding the character. Is it possible he sees the pestilence because he is a part of it? Is it maybe because it follows him? Or does it not even exist at all? There are moments where it almost feels like we're getting an answer as to what the pestilence could be, but it's cut off by the doctor's stubbornness or Jacobs' anger. The mystery remains, despite Jacobs being cured somehow by the end. Was it perhaps Jacobs losing his will to live that cured him of the pestilence? Or perhaps is it fear, and by not fearing death, Jacobs is cured of the pestilence? Or once again, does the pestilence even exist? Another thing about the writing I liked was the subtleties to real plague doctors. One of the best examples being the rumor 035 started about 049 being an omen of death. If you remember correctly, it was ultimately theater that brought this almost evil image to the public of what plague doctors were, and 035 is indeed a theater mask. It's small things like this that really make this video shine. Another thing I'd like to note is that the video asked if there were others like him, and how despite taking upon students, he is the only one of his kind. It should be noted that of the 18 plague doctors in Venice during the Black Plague, 12 went missing and maybe fled, and 5 died of the plague. That meant only 1 survived. Is it possible 049 is the final plague doctor of Venice? I'll leave that for you to decide. That said, this video is amazing. It has me interested in checking out the rest of the series, so who knows, maybe you guys will get more content regarding this in the future. Don't unbuckle just yet though, we still got more to get through. SCP, the Doctor. Okay, so side note, while I was looking for this video, I found this. What the fuck are you guys into, man? Like, Jesus Christ. Anyways, our live action video of 049 starts with the security in front of a door as some doctors approach. An officer opens it up as the other guy keeps the scientist back. This dude definitely got called in on his off day. Look at that face. From the door, however, steps 049. He's ordered to go inside before they draw their guns. We cut to a man in a dark room being interrogated. He wakes up and identifies himself as Eric Scott. The interviewer is given a folder and tells him he was found knocked out in a restricted area without a badge. He asks what happened this morning. Eric can't recall anything, but he does remember last night. He was visiting a Dr. Williams who was pouring him a drink. He refuses, but gives in to peer pressure. It's revealed he's already traumatized after his first case. Turns out he was assigned to SCP-7122. The SCP in question is a safe one, but still causes a lot of mental trauma to its workers. It's a simple camera found in Stockholm, but those photographed by it will die if their photo is deleted. If the metadata is deleted, they become paralyzed. They decided to experiment by swapping the metadata of two subjects and had them memorize then recite a poem. The result, one bashed his head against the wall, and the other one had a heart attack. It would appear their minds were indeed swapped. Eric feels sadness at the event, while Dr. Williams claims they were death row inmates, so it didn't matter. Instead, his workplace saw a fellow worker die. We cut to an old lady walking into a room with 049 asking about the pestilence. He claims it takes everyone. Dr. Williams said they supply him with animal bodies for his work, but no one knows what the pestilence is. But if you have it, it's game over. The lady returns only to be killed by the doctor. Later that day, the doctor saw 049 who stared at him. The doctor tells him to not cry for the lives of the guilty, cry for the lives of the innocent. We cut back to the interview as Eric is asked about his DUI. He refutes it as the interviewer claims he shouldn't have his job with a record like that. Eric refuses to answer more questions until he notices he's wearing Dr. Williams' ring. It all makes sense now. The two were swapped. It occurred because 049 saw Dr. Williams had the pestilence, and thus he tried to save his life. Suddenly, the interviewer has to go as an alarm goes off. Our hero checks his pocket before Fritos.
Take a look at you.
We cut to our villain sitting in his room with a drink. What happens next? Cut to credits and play Linkin Park. The video is much shorter than our last one, but it was still interesting. Seeing the Foundation in the live action was actually very nice and only fuels my desires for a full-on SCP movie. Obviously, the rights to the movie would be sticky due to the community nature of the property, but it'd be great to see something like this with a heavy budget and starring Ryan Gosling. Just kidding, I want Jack Black instead. That said, I do have some gripes with the video. For starters, for a video titled The Doctor with 049 on the thumbnail, he's surprisingly absent in the video. He's there at the start and then briefly in the middle, only to get his big bit at the end. The focus on 7122 wasn't terrible, as it depicted a great showcase for something so simple, but I kinda wish there was more for our Doctor to do. My last issue is that the depiction of him felt a little cartoony. Maybe it was coming off the heels of our first video, but I felt like this one took a lot of nuance away from him. Instead of having a lot of deep philosophical questions and depicting a doctor that may actually care for those he kills, it almost felt like this version was more thrilled to kill instead of cure. 049 usually is seen speaking of the pestilence with almost some type of fear. This one felt like he saw it more as a joke. The final scene of him peering into the room like a horror villain and seemingly giddy was also out of character, as even in the video games, he's portrayed with misplaced care. The video isn't bad, but I'd say it was slightly underwhelming in its portrayal of such a great character. Overall, SCP-049 is a phenomenal character. He's a great example of a character that has an amazing aesthetic but also has something else to keep you around. He's got so much to offer on the inside and the outside. Doing this video has really put 049 high on my list of favorite SCPs. He's scary, thought-provoking, and unique. SCP-049 stands as among the greatest in SCP lore, and I can't wait to see what else the community does with him. Well, that was quite a journey. We here at 4Plus always love seeing you guys here every week, and the support is greatly appreciated. We're always looking for new ways to entertain you guys, and are always looking for feedback, be it positive or negative. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm feeling a little sick. Perhaps I'll go see my doctor.